Oh, well, hello. Just heading home from work. Street's a bit busy today, so it's going to be a bit of a loud sort of affair, but what can you do? What's banging around in my head today? Polls are turning against Doug Ford, as they should. Doug Ford is a fraud and a loser, and got elected on a wave of incredibly stupid dumbness. It always amazes me how often politics is just sort of the expression of humanity's anger or angst or emotional state, maybe is the best way of putting it. Seems like the people who are elected are rarely elected because of their ideas or because of their plans or because of any of this kind of stuff, but because of feelings and emotions that people are having that need to be expressed. And it's the politician who seems to best embody those emotions. And I don't even like to say like take advantage of those emotions, because I don't think that's what's going on. I think they just sort of embody that. Like, I take a look at someone like Bernie Sanders, for example, is a great example of this, right? You could say, like, oh, he's got the best ideas, and that's the reason why he's going to the top. But his ideas are deeply rooted in this kind of emotional place. Like, if you're a person who has known someone who's experienced hardship because of the healthcare system in the United States, you have an emotional incentive to want to support people who have been saying for years and years that they want to improve that. And you also have an incentive in America to not, well, and in Canada too, to be deeply skeptical of politicians. Because there are politicians who come out and they say, oh sure, I'll support that, and then they don't. And they were just trying to get your vote. And that's pretty much how it's gone for Doug Ford. Like, at this stage, like, if you originally voted for Doug Ford, I understand. I understand that there's like a frustration that people had, that they were trying to express their deep anger at the Liberal Party, whose grave sin was making a couple of bad deals that were sort of pro-corporate. My view is, honestly, people are fickle, and they get restless and tiresome, and they desire change for the sake of change. And simply ousting the Liberals sort of fuels that, their sort of desire to, let's get rid of these Liberals, let's get rid of Wynne, who honestly, Kathleen Wynne did a fine job. Looking back on her tenure, sure, you could point to stuff like the gas plant scandal. The gas plant scandal is like the one that, like, that's not even her scandal. She's sort of in the party while that's happening. That's Dalton McGuinty's scandal. And what's the scandal, right? It's that we're talking about a minor corruption scandal where the Liberals make a deal and they end up spending just a bit too much. And the deal, though, is a green energy deal. Like, it's to transition the province to green energy. And they transition. In that transition, they end up spending a little bit more than I think people thought they should have. And rightly, they should have. They should have spent less. But that's a minor corruption scandal, right? And this has held through for years and years. It's held through to the point where now there's to the point where it like bubbles up. It's like how unresolved issues, if you have a family member or if you have a friend who has done something wrong, who you feel has done something wrong to you, and if you don't resolve it, if you don't attempt to resolve it, then it exists underneath the surface in this constant state of festering. And if you don't see them for a while, perhaps, then this grows and augments and becomes sort of part of their personality and could even override their entire personality. And so you're very skeptical and you're very scared of what they have to say and who they are. And it's because you didn't take the time to actually resolve that. Well, this happens in politics. Certainly, this is a phenomenon. And I feel like the Liberals were victims of this, to an extent. Because Kathleen Wynne, I mean, she raised the minimum wage. She was going to raise it to $15 an hour. She was raising taxes on the wealthiest people. She was funding programs like a basic income, right? She was moving farther to the left and moving forward in that way. But I think the restlessness of the populace and the desire for change, the desire for something different, and honestly, I feel like something that doesn't get articulated a lot in that shift is that people, especially people under the age of 30, politically now, are taking a hard no corporate stance. That even if a corporation is involved in a banal or innocuous way, it does seem like, and I include myself in this, that if there's a corporation involved, that's a hard no. And the Liberals, because they try to act as compromise candidates and they try to stand in the middle, well, then that means that they want to bring corporate people into their fold, right? They want to believe that they can accommodate everybody and accommodate what's being said. But as we go along, it becomes more obvious that the younger generation and people coming up now don't buy that, because we understand that structurally speaking, the arrangement is not neutral. The beneficiaries are the people at the top of these corporate structures who take advantage of the labor of the populace. And so if you try to act as a quote-unquote compromise candidate or a centrist in the middle of all of that, you're fundamentally saying to a group of people, you will always work for capitalists. You will wake up, go to a place that you don't like, do something you don't want to do on behalf of people you barely know and will probably never meet. That's the basis. That's the ground floor. And there are lots of people who are just giving that a hard no. And I think that probably had more to do with it than people talk about. That people are tired of this capitalist system. People are tired of it. And so support bottoms out for Wynne, because her role in this is to keep people working for capitalists. She's making incremental improvements, but she's making those incremental improvements so that people will continue working for capitalists. And then in comes Doug Ford, peddling a pack of lies, like being an enormous liar. You'd be very hard pressed to find. I would be very interested to see like a side-by-side comparison between Doug Ford and Donald Trump, because I think Trump actually did do some of the things he said he was going to do. I think he actually did achieve some of the agenda that he set out. Doug Ford has been a complete liar on every point. There isn't one point that he has not been a total fraud. Even on the most banal stuff, the buck of beer promise, which is so overtly childish. And he quote unquote delivers on this, because for like half a fraction of a second some convenience store somewhere or some grocery store somewhere sells, 1,000 things of beer for like. So it's this really childish and really silly sort of perspective where it seems as though the people who are voting for this conservative option no longer care about any kind of truth or any kind of reality, right? It seems like the only thing they care about is I have a house, I drive to work, or I'm retired. Don't change a thing. I don't care about those kids. They can be bankrupt and go where. Who cares? Who cares about them? It's sort of this lack of empathy, this sort of selfishness that embodies the current Conservative Party here in Ontario, certainly. But it seems like it's across Canada. Like, Kenny in Alberta couldn't be a bigger disaster for that province if he tried. He's only increasing suffering. He's only causing larger problems for people. And he does not care about them. Like, he doesn't. He'll tell you he does, but his actions speak completely opposite to that. Just the fact that he set up this war room, for God's sakes. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that you're in the middle of like laying off huge segments of your populace because eventually the oil sands, the tar sands have to cease producing. They have to. This transition has to occur. We all know it's true. At this point, if you're denying it, you're a child, and you need to sit down and you need to shut your mouth, because being a denialist, in my view, is absolutely heinous. Not only does it make you uncredible as an individual, I think it makes you a dangerous person. I think if you're denying the reality of climate change at this point, and even favoring, quote unquote, the economy over the climate, I think you're a dangerous individual who will only awaken when something truly disastrous happens to somebody you know. That always seems to be how it works with these types of people. They don't seem to awaken to what is obvious until it starts to affect at least someone they know. Then it forces them to actually observe and analyze and understand in a truly personal way. But until such time, they'll just dig in their heels. You're like, oh no, the economy. Whenever anybody says to me, oh, you can't do that, it'll collapse the economy, my response is good. Good. I hope it collapses the economy of death. I hope the economy of death collapses and that something else takes its place. Because if the economy of death collapses, well, what's going to take its place? It's probably not an economy of death, right? It's probably a different kind of a thing that's going to come up and take its place. And Doug Ford, I'm glad to see that the populace is turning against him. I hope it gets sharper. I read these polls and it's still like he has 30% support or something like that. And I'm like, 30%? How could he possibly have 30% support? 30%. That's, 1 in 5? At least? 1 in 4? Oh my God, my math. 1 in 4. So every fourth person you meet is a selfish scumbag who doesn't care about anyone else, who will assault autistic children, who will throw children under the bus in order to make a buck off of them, who will grind people into poverty and don't care, and are stupid enough to believe that they're saving money while doing it, while of course all the costs go up and everything becomes more expensive. Because at this stage in the game, if you're supporting conservatives, I mean, I don't think you have the capacity to understand what's going on in the world around you. I think these people are living in little bubbles. House, car, work, car, house. And I don't think they talk to anybody, and I don't think they go see anything. And it's just how it has to be. It has to be that case. Because it's become so obvious what needs to be done. But it seems like there are huge segments of the populace that are stamping their feet and crying about it and acting like little children. I see it every day. I see that kind of behavior in my store every single day. I see children stamping their feet, crying. And then the parents look at them and say, look, man, there's reality. You have to face it. And if we don't, if we keep voting conservative or liberal, in my view, we're going to pay for it. Anyway, hope you're all having a good time, guys. I love you all.